has shocked a lot of us. The 7 family members who were killed and buried at their house in Vlakfontein, Johannesburg, will be buried this coming Sunday. Bodies of the family, which are aged between 2 and 50 years old, were discovered by police this week. The suspect, who rented a room in the family's yard, is still at large. Police say although he is known as Sibusiso Khoza, he used 2 other names on his social media accounts and is in fact a Zimbabwean national. Well, our SABC News reporter Gillian Pillay is covering this story, and she's in studio to tell us a little bit more. Gillian, welcome. Good to have you in here. I don't even want to begin to imagine. I mean, you've covered a lot of stories, but walking into that house must have been one of the most horrific experiences you've been through in your career.
When we arrived there on Monday, I don't think we knew what had awaited us. I don't think we even thought about bodies and what we were going to expect. But it really only hit us when we got to there were bodies in the main home, and then there were bodies in an outbuilding.
Yeah.
And I think the bodies in the outbuilding had been there for quite some time. The stench was unbearable.
Yeah.
And what they pulled out of that particular room, I don't think pathologists are probably the only people, and forensic professionals are the only people that see that kind of thing. And I'm actually still speechless, and you know, you hear these things, but to actually go and report on it is a completely different thing. To be able, I mean, that stench, you couldn't help but want to gag. And
I can imagine, because I mean, you sort of, when you say they'd been there for a long time,
yeah.
I mean, any guesstimate? I mean, a month, 2 months, perhaps a year? What are people saying?
So we spoke to the tenant. He was very forthcoming with information, because it's very difficult to build up a timeline around what exactly happened. We know that they were last seen alive the 19th of October, and that gives us an idea that it's possibly soon thereafter that this events could have happened. I know that on Wednesday when we were there, it really hit most of us, because you know, when you're reporting and that adrenaline pumping, you're doing what you have to do, and you don't think about the circumstances around you. But when the family members had spoken to us after they had returned from the mortuary, you saw those scenes. They were hysterical naturally.
Yeah.
And then having to go back into that room that they had to clean up, and they had to remove the sand, they had to remove the bedding, the bodies weren't there, but it just gave you a sense of, if you were a family member, what your relative had been through. We know that without being too gruesome and graphic, you can imagine the state of those bodies.
Yeah.
We know sharp objects were used, and we understand it's head injuries. So you ask yourself the question, what could have motivated someone to do this? But also having to tell the tenant, the guy we interviewed,
Yeah.
he had asked a few times, he asked Sibusiso, so what is the smell? Why is it getting worse? And he kept saying, it's rats. I'm trying to kill the rats. I don't have the key to the room to open windows. And it
just sounds like it's a very suspicious story.
And it's someone who had found these people on Facebook, Leanne. I mean, this is the next story that we got to look at to make people aware. He allegedly found them on Facebook, wormed his way into the family. He's got various aliases. We understand from Facebook that he has a troubled past, but you can imagine how charming and how convincing he must have been to have told these people that he is a child of one of the deceased relatives, for them to have welcomed him into their home since July this year, living with him, Leanne.
Yeah.
He's got Facebooks with the youngest of children that are deceased now, 2 years old, and with, you know, he's got pictures with all those relatives on his Facebook page.
It's a unbelievable story. When I mean unbelievable, I mean it in the sense of it's almost impossible to believe something like this can happen, but it has happened. I don't want you to go anywhere. We want to just get the news headline bulletin, and we'll wrap this up. We really need to find out more about this guy. Put his photo up. There's a massive search for him. He can't get away with this, and we need to let the public be aware of it. So I'm going to quickly hand over to Sakina for our 7:30 news headlines, and we'll continue the conversation with Gillian.